got summoned to another world with a grocery app. The kingdom looked at his stats, called him useless, handed him pocket change, and told him to figure it out on his own. 6 months later, he had a god-tier wolf as his bodyguard, a slime that was evolving faster than anything in recorded history, and a growing list of actual gods who would not stop contacting him asking for more snacks. He did not fight for any of it. He cooked for it, every single piece. This is Campfire Cooking in Another World, both seasons, and I am going to show you exactly how a man with a grocery app built the most untouchable life in the entire isekai genre. I'm Echo. This is Final Arc. Let's get into it. There's a moment in almost every isekai where the show tells you what it actually is, not what the premise promises, not what the genre template implies, what it actually is underneath all of it. For most shows, that moment involves a fight, a dramatic reveal, a power unlocking in a moment of crisis, something loud that announces the stakes and tells you this is serious, this matters, pay close attention. Campfire Cooking in Another World does it differently. Its version of that moment is a man sitting by a fire, stirring a pot of miso soup, watching a legendary divine wolf, a creature that has existed for centuries, that has destroyed armies, that entire kingdoms have built defensive strategies around lean forward with barely contained excitement because dinner is almost ready. That is the show. That is the entire emotional pitch. And it works better than it has any right to, for reasons that take 2 full seasons to fully understand. So let's start from the beginning. Mukouda Tsuyoshi is 32 years old, not a student. Not a brooding teenager with a tragic backstory and a destiny he can feel but cannot name. He is an adult. He has a job. He has a grocery list. He has a life that is ordinary in every measurable way and is, by his own quiet assessment, pretty much fine. He is not unhappy. He is not searching for something. He is a grown man who has made peace with the version of life he has, which is more than most protagonists in this genre ever manage before the universe intervenes. And then the universe intervenes. Mukouda gets summoned to another world. This part is standard. The mechanism, the flash of light, the disorientation, and the unfamiliar sky, all of it is exactly what you have seen before. What is not standard is what happens next. He is summoned alongside 3 actual chosen heroes. Young, powerful, destined in the specific way that this genre uses the word destined, where it means the world has been waiting for you specifically and will organize itself around your arrival. They get the ceremony. They get the glowing stat screens and the divine blessings and the kingdom's complete and undivided attention. They get legendary weapons and formal training and the full weight of an entire nation's hope sitting on their shoulders. Mukouda gets a mediocre status readout and a skill called NetSuper. NetSuper is exactly what it sounds like. It is an online shopping portal connected to modern Japan. He can order food, groceries specifically, condiments, seasoning, convenience store items, cooking supplies, snacks, while the 3 heroes are being fitted for destiny. Mukouda Tsuyoshi is quietly placing an order for soy sauce and sesame oil and wondering if he can get a good knife delivered. The kingdom looks at his numbers, does the math, concludes that he contributes nothing to their war effort against the demon lord, hands him a small purse of coins that amounts to an apology, and tells him he is on his own. And here is the moment that defines everything that follows. He is not shattered by this. He does not rage against the unfairness, does not swear to prove them wrong, does not begin a dark arc of resentment that will eventually become power. He thinks about it. He considers his situation with the practical clarity of someone who has spent 32 years managing expectations, his own and other people's. And he concludes that being cut loose from the kingdom's plans is probably the best thing that has happened to him since he got here. He never wanted to save the world. He wanted to have a life. And now, without a kingdom's agenda attached to his back, he might actually get to go build one. He just did not expect the first step to involve a Fenrir. Fel finds him on the road. Fel is a Fenrir, which in this world is shorthand for ancient, enormous, terrifyingly powerful, and the kind of creature that appears in historical texts as a warning rather than description. He has been alive long enough to have watched civilizations rise and collapse and be forgotten. He has fought things that would end a normal person before they could form a coherent thought about running. He is, by any objective measure, one of the most dangerous living beings currently walking this world. And he has followed a smell to the road where a 32-year-old Japanese man is standing with a grocery app and no idea what to do next. The smell is Mukouda's cooking. What follows is a negotiation that is completely absurd on the surface and entirely logical underneath. Fel wants access to Mukouda's meals, not occasionally, regularly. He has tasted something he has never tasted in centuries of existence, and he intends to keep tasting it. Mukouda, who is traveling through a world full of things that could kill him and currently has no means of protecting himself from any of them, recognizes an opportunity immediately. They make a deal. Fel becomes his familiar, a bond that in this world is legally recognized, magically binding, and completely unprecedented when one party is a Fenrir and the other party is a man with a grocery app. Food in exchange for protection. Both parties walk away satisfied, and from that exact moment, Mukouda Tsuyoshi mediocre stats, no combat ability, a skill the kingdom dismissed as useless, becomes one of the most practically untouchable people on the continent, because nobody starts trouble with someone whose familiar could dismantle them without breaking stride. The Adventurers Guild learns this immediately. The first time Mukouda walks in to register, the staff see his numbers and prepare to be politely dismissive. Then Fel walks in behind him. The room recalibrates. The registration proceeds with extraordinary courtesy and a significant upgrade in assigned rank. This scene gets replicated in different forms across both seasons, and it never stops being satisfying. The universe quietly correcting every person who judged a man by a number on a screen. Now let's talk about the food, because this is where the show earns everything. There is a version of this show that treats cooking as flavor, something that happens in the background. A recurring visual motif that gives the show its title and its aesthetic without being the actual substance of anything. A lot of shows do this. They name themselves after an activity and then use that activity decoratively. Campfire Cooking refuses this entirely. The cooking is not decoration. It is not window dressing. It is not something that happens between the scenes that matter. The cooking is the scenes that matter. Mukouda thinks about food the way someone who genuinely loves cooking thinks about it. He plans meals. He considers what ingredients he can source from net super and how they interact with what is locally available. He thinks about what Fel will respond to versus what he himself wants to eat. He adjusts based on weather, on what the journey requires, on what he is in the mood for. He is not performing cooking for an audience. He is cooking because it is one of the things he is good at and one of the things that makes him feel like himself, and that distinction between performing and actually doing is something the show communicates without ever stating it directly. The reason this food hits the way it does in this world comes down to a gap. The gap between what modern food is and what a medieval fantasy world has ever experienced. This world does not have MSG. It does not have 500 years of culinary cross-pollination between global cuisines. It does not have the accumulated, refined, endlessly iterated expertise that goes into something as seemingly unremarkable as a Japanese convenience store rice ball. When Mukouda makes that rice ball in another world, it is extraordinary, not because he is a chef, not because he has a special skill beyond net super, but because the baseline he is working from is so far ahead of anything this world has ever tasted that the gap reads as magic even though it is not magic at all. It is just seasoning, applied carefully, by someone who actually cares. Fel's reaction to each meal is one of the most reliable joys in 2 full seasons of television. He is ancient and powerful, and has clearly made a decision that he will not pretend to be above enjoying dinner, and the result is something that works both as comedy and as character work. The anticipation that builds before Mukouda starts cooking. The focused, slightly intense attention during. Verdict after delivered with the absolute authority of something that does not say things it does not mean. Fel is a dog. This is the core insight, not a wolf in the noble, distant, mythological sense. A dog in the specific and irreducible way of dogs, who need proximity, who express preference clearly, who attach and do not let go, who will communicate their feelings about your cooking every single time without any pretense of being unbothered. Centuries of existence. Divine power, and completely unable to act cool when dinner smells this good. It is impossible not to love him. The show knows this and leans into it completely. Then the gods find out, and Season 1 discovers its second gear. Religious practice in this world includes leaving food offerings for the gods. Mukouda does this because it seems respectful, and he is the kind of person who does things that seem respectful even when no one is watching. What he does not account for is that when he leaves modern Japanese food as an offering, the gods literally receive it, not symbolically, actually. And the gods, who are ancient and powerful and have been receiving the same quality of offering for thousands of years, suddenly receive something completely unlike anything in their divine experience. Ninril is the wind goddess. She's the first to make contact, and the way she does it sets the template for every divine interaction across both seasons. She appears in Mukouda's mind with the full weight of divine communication. This is a serious channel. This is not something that happens casually. This is a god speaking to a mortal, and what she communicates with all of that gravity is that she would like sweets in the next offering, specifically sweets. She has had the savory. She wants to try the sweets. She communicates this desire with the intensity of someone trying very hard to sound measured about something they are not measured about at all. The comedy of this moment is perfect, not because gods wanting sweets is inherently funny, but because of the gap between the form and the content. The communication is divine. The request is deeply, recognizably human, and Mukouda's response, which is not awe, not prostration, not the trembling reverence that this world has trained everyone to feel in the presence of divine contact, but rather a sort of quiet, practical consideration of whether this is a reasonable arrangement, immediately establishes who has the actual leverage here. Ninril needs him more than he needs her. She has had the food, she cannot go back. He has something she wants, and no particular obligation to provide it. And Mukouda, who has spent 32 years in a world that runs on negotiation and reasonable expectations, recognizes this and negotiates. Accordingly, more gods follow. Each one arrives through the same channel of serious divine communication, delivering extremely specific food requests, and each one gets managed by Mukouda with the same calm, firm, slightly amused pragmatism. He sets terms. He expects them to be honored. He does not treat the gods with irreverence, but he does not treat them with the deference they are used to receiving, either. He treats them like contractors, capable, powerful, useful contractors who have agreed to certain terms and will be reminded of those terms if they step outside them. The gods find this simultaneously maddening, and underneath the maddening part, genuinely refreshing. Nobody has ever talked to them like this. Nobody has ever had the leverage to. They accumulate across Season 1 and into Season 2, a growing roster of divine beings who are, at varying levels of dignity and self-awareness, addicted to a 32-year-old Japanese man's cooking. Each one has a distinct personality. Ninril's barely suppressed enthusiasm for sweets. The earth goddess's more restrained but equally genuine appreciation. The fire god who would never admit to looking forward to offerings but whose pattern of contact suggests otherwise. The show builds these relationships with the same patience it builds everything, gradually, through repeated interaction. Through the accumulation of small moments that establish personality before they are called upon to do anything significant. Sui arrives in Season 1 and completes the picture in a way that is so simple and so effective that it almost sneaks up on you. Slimes are the weakest monster type in this world. This is not contested. It is simply the established baseline. Slimes are the thing you fight when you are just starting out. The enemy designed to introduce new adventurers to combat without risking anyone getting hurt. They are small, they are simple, they are everywhere, and they matter to no one in particular. Sui is a slime, small, blue, enthusiastic in the way that things that have not yet learned to hold anything back are enthusiastic, completely, without reservation, in every direction at once. Sui eats Mukouda's food, and Sui begins to grow, not in the normal way that slimes grow, in a way that has no precedent in the recorded history of monster behavior in this world. Sui develops abilities that slimes do not have. Sui develops a personality that is distinct and consistent and increasingly specific. Sui develops, over the course of Season 1 and deep into Season 2, into something that the word slime stops being sufficient to describe. And the engine of all of this is food. The same food that has been doing this to everyone else, to Fel, to the gods, to every person and creature who has come close enough to smell what is cooking, is doing it to Sui in a more concentrated, more dramatic, more visible way. Because Sui is young, because Sui has no baseline to fall back on, no centuries of experience to contextualize what is happening. Sui just grows toward what is good and does not question whether it is supposed to. The three of them together, Fel, Sui, Mukouda, are not a party in the adventuring sense. They are a family in the most functional and least dramatic sense of that word. They travel together, they eat together. They face things together and resolve them with a division of labor that has developed naturally and works precisely because nobody sat down and designed it. Fel handles the fighting. Sui handles the things Sui can handle, which keep expanding as Sui keeps growing. Mukouda handles the cooking and the thinking and the navigation of social situations that require someone who can speak to other humans without terrifying them. This arrangement is efficient and warm and has the feel of something that has been going on long enough to stop requiring conversation. Season 2 opens with this family established and then begins the work of testing it in different ways. The gods become more present. The relationships that Mukouda has built through food offerings, through the careful, negotiated exchanges of Season 1, deepen into something more complicated and more genuine. Gods who agreed to help him under specific conditions start to bend those conditions not because they are breaking the deal, but because they have started to want outcomes that were not part of the original terms. Gods who initially approached him as a vendor, this is a transaction, I provide assistance, you provide offerings, start to show up in ways that suggest the transaction framing is no longer entirely accurate. They care, not in the way mortals care, not with the same emotional texture, but in the way that very old beings who have seen everything eventually find something new to be interested in, and find to their own surprise that the interest has become something more like investment. This is the most interesting character development in Season 2, and it happens almost entirely in the background. The gods never make a speech about it. Mukouda never explicitly names it, but the pattern of divine contact shifts over the course of the season in ways that are legible if you are paying attention, and the show trusts you enough to pay attention. Cooking in Season 2 escalates in ambition without escalating in drama. Mukouda gets access to ingredients he could not source in Season 1. His understanding of what is locally available deepens as he travels more and registers the variety in different regions. He experiments more. He pushes further from what he knows and closer to improvisation, which is where cooking as a practice either reveals its limits or reveals how deeply someone has actually absorbed it. Mukouda's cooking reveals the latter. He can work with what he has. He can adapt. He can produce something that surprises even Fel, which at this point in the story is a meaningful benchmark because Fel's baseline for impressed has been rising for 2 full seasons and shows no signs of plateauing. New characters come into the story in Season 2, and this is where I want to spend a moment on something the show does quietly that most shows in this genre do not do at all. The new characters are not introduced through conflict. They are not established by having them oppose Mukouda or compete with him or test him in some way. They are introduced through proximity. Through the same mechanism that brought Fel and Sui into his life, they are near him, they experience something good, and they choose to stay. This is a completely different character introduction model than what the genre typically uses, and it works because it is consistent with the show's central argument about how relationships actually form, not through drama, through repeated, genuine good experience, through someone cooking dinner and caring about whether it is right, over and over until the people around them realize that this is where they want to be. The threats in Season 2 are real in a way that Season 1 were not. The world around Mukouda is more dangerous. The things he and his companions encounter are more serious, more consequential, less easy to resolve. And here the show has to navigate something tricky, which is how to raise stakes without changing the fundamental nature of what it is. It cannot become an action show. It would not be honest to itself if it did. The answer it finds is to resolve conflict through the network Mukouda has built. Fel, Sui, the gods, the relationships and alliances that are the direct result of someone who treated every person he met with the same calm decency and every meal he made with the same genuine care. He does not fight his way through Season 2 problems. His community does. And his community exists because of who he is, not because of any power he has. This is the show's thesis, stated as clearly in Season 2 as it has ever been. The most durable protection is not strength. It is the accumulation of real relationships with beings who have decided that your continued existence matters to them. Mukouda's safety is not guaranteed by his own combat ability. It is guaranteed by a Fenrir who chose him, a slime who grew toward him, gods who agreed to care whether he makes it through the week, and a growing number of people who have sat across from him at a meal and felt something they had not felt before. Every plate of food was an investment, not strategic, not calculated, just genuine, and genuine in the long run compounds. By the end of Season 2, Mukouda Tsuyoshi has built something that the heroes who were summoned alongside him almost certainly have not. The heroes are powerful. They are destined. They are probably winning their war against the Demon Lord, fighting with the full backing of a kingdom that needs them. But Mukouda has something that is harder to build than power and harder to sustain than destiny. He has a life he actually wants, not the life that was assigned to him, not the life that would have made sense given his starting conditions. The life that he built through cooking and honesty and a 32-year-old adult's very specific understanding of what actually matters to him. Every piece of it was chosen. Every person in it showed up because he gave them a reason to. Every meal was exactly what he intended it to be. He did not inherit a destiny. He cooked one. And that is a different kind of power than anything the summoning ceremony was prepared to measure. Here is my honest read across both seasons. What this show does better than almost any other isekai in recent memory is maintain conviction. It knows what it is. It never apologizes for being slow. It never throws in an action arc to justify its existence to an audience that might want something louder. It trusts that the thing it is doing, this quiet, careful, consistently warm story about a man making dinner in another world, is enough. And it is enough, more than enough. The confidence required to make a show like this, to resist the genre gravity that pulls everything toward combat and power and escalating stakes, is genuinely rare. The show has it in both seasons, even when the execution is not perfect. Where it is imperfect is worth naming. The pacing in the middle stretch of Season 2 softens in ways that work episode by episode, but lose some forward momentum when you watch in sequence. Some of the new characters introduced in Season 2 feel like they are being held in reserve for Season 3 that has not arrived yet, given enough presence to establish them, but not enough to complete them. And there are moments across both seasons where the episodic structure that gives the show its gentle rhythm also makes it hard to feel the cumulative weight of everything Mukouda has built. These are not fatal problems. They are the natural cost of a show with these priorities. But the thing it gets right is the most important thing. It understands that the fantasy it is selling is not about power or revenge or being recognized as special. It is about something smaller and harder and more specific. It is about being a grown adult in a world you did not choose, finding the version of life that fits you, and building it carefully out of the materials available. Food, a wolf, a slime, a handful of gods who are not going to admit how much they look forward to offerings, a fire somewhere on a road in a world that is strange and occasionally dangerous but increasingly, unmistakably home. Mukouda is by the fire, Fel is waiting, Sui is somewhere nearby contributing to something, probably. The food is almost ready. And somewhere above all of it, the gods are having a quiet disagreement about whose offering gets priority this time. Because they have all been very clear about what they want and none of them want to share. This is final arc, I'm Echo. Season 3 cannot come